Jay here for Stretford, Paddock. That is Ronaldo Brown. This is the Paddock podcast. We are live. Get involved in all the chat and the comments and let us know what you think about what is going down at our football club. Ronnie, it's been a little while. How are you? Why are you smiling, man? What's funny?
Nah, do you know what?
There's nothing to smile about at Manchester United.
There's nothing to smile about to do with Manchester United.
Go on, share it with the group.
It's you telling me just before we've gone live on air that Ethan James,
Ethan James
is in Marbella.
Why is that funny?
So initially when I heard that, it didn't like.
Why is that?
It didn't fully register,
funny
and then I started having the whole visualization of Ethan in Marbella.
It's just incongruous, isn't it?
It just didn't compute, so I started laughing in my head.
I think his mates, we were saying this the other day, I think his mates have said, we'll go to Marbella, and basically they got to Benidorm. And it's like, it's just near Marbella. It's just down the road from Marbella.
Sounds like...
Because he's not that guy,
Sounds like an in-betweener spin-off.
Yeah, Ethan in Marbella. It does, doesn't it? He's not that guy, but he's away on his holidays. So producer Alexei has stepped in, is doing a sterling job. I'm sure you can all agree. Unlike them lot who play for my football team or our football club, Manchester United, just a bit of a shambles at the minute.
It's not... Yeah,
and I'm not one of these, right? And we're not like this on this channel, where we go, everything's rubbish, let's just revel in it, slag off loads of players, let's do this. My default setting is to be positive and to stick up for players. But at the minute, there's a lot going wrong.
There's like a limit of that, and sometimes you want to be... Because I'm similar, I don't want to be too, but if I see stuff going wrong, I can't help but highlight it.
And it comes to a lot to look at as well.
Football club, I'm just being real, and it's one of those where it's not looking good at the moment. We had a similar start to this last season. Yeah. Similar-ish. We obviously did turn it around in a sense, but this season is different. What worries me is I think the Premier League this season has gotten a little bit of a level up. And I think that's gradually happening. I think the teams lower down the table are getting better. Yeah. I'm not saying they're necessarily narrowing the gap a whole lot. I feel like there's never been really easy games in the Premier League anyway, but I think there's a lot more quality throughout the Premier League distributed anyway. So I think... it's now if your team's not firing or there's anything that's a little bit tactically wrong or personnel-wise or you've got a few injuries, can just get caught out on any given week.
I think we're seeing a really good point. Because right, let me ask you about some of these teams. Right, let me throw a team at you. And like these are the sort of teams at the minute that are around sort of mid-table-ish. Yeah, and we'll go as low as go as low as 15th. Yeah, Bournemouth. Decent team that's got anything about him or rubbish?
I watched Bournemouth against Chelsea and they were a lot better than I thought. And I looked at it and I said to you earlier, so even United versus Bournemouth, you look at that and it thinks 3 points, nothing less. That should happen. Watching them against Chelsea made me think, in our current state of affairs, we'd make a massive struggle out of Bournemouth. They actually are quite dangerous going forward. And you know, what I said is their personnel and the way that they have like a lot of quick wingers, very dynamic, quite a powerful side, especially from the midfield to forward areas, Bournemouth. And that's exactly what we're struggling against. Because one of the major issues that United have right now is our physicality and our athleticism. And that was highlighted again, because even McTominay, who's meant to be one of our like powerhouses and he runs all day, even I know he's not played a lot, but he looked extremely leggy.
He did look leggy. I think you're being kind now because others would just call it lazy, but leggy, I think he's probably a.
I think that's what I said. I think teams are just like running all over us.
There was a time when Tariq Lamptey knocked it around McTominay, went past McTominay, and McTominay turned around and just thought, oh dear, never mind.
Yeah, because you know what? A lot of people go to the default setting and say, oh, it's just effort. Obviously, there's a little bit of that, mind over matter and all that, but I think there's actually a lot of players that we have that just aren't physically capable. Yeah. Okay. Do you know what I mean? I know there's some instances of some players not showing enough effort, etc. But I think there's some players on the team that just don't have those physical attributes to kind of keep up. Because we saw against Wolves, we're going to talk about 3 losses that we have this season, right? We should have really lost against Wolves as well.
We were terrible against Wolves.
Do you know what I mean? And obviously,
to be fair though, we should have. But can I just say, Wolves couldn't finish the dinner and can't finish the dinner because that is them all over.
That is them.
I was watching them at the weekend. And it was the same old story. They were playing, they obviously had the game at the weekend against Liverpool. They took the lead. The first half, they were dominating Liverpool. And they had chances. And you know what it is with chances, right, with Wolves? It's like, it's not even though you go, the keeper's made a good save, or doesn't look at, they're like proper fluffing the lines when the ball comes to him. Like there's one where he jumps and it hits his thigh. So you think, why have you jumped? There's another one where he just took far too many touches when he was basically through and goal. Like, he had a lot of chances. So I think that is a problem.
Yeah, is a problem.
You're right. Like, we did get away with it a little bit. All right, you got one from Bournemouth. Right, Wolves, you've already talked about Bournemouth. Chelsea, they're having a time of it again. No. But on their day, they have got players.
Yes, exactly.
They can beat, like, the likes of Fernandes and Sterling and who else have they got? Chilwell's a decent player. I know they're not like, oh my God, but like, these are good players. Do you know what I mean? Like, Thiago Silva's still got some gas in the tank.
Because you can even go to Sheffield United, right?
Casado and players.
Sheffield United actually ran Man City quite close at home, and they're unlucky. They conceded 2 goals in stoppage time.
8th from 99th minute, I think it
Tottenham,
was.
who've had a good start as well. So I think we are making the whole point generally is like, we're not at a level now as Manchester United, or especially the way the Premier League's set up now, where you can just walk into games now and it's just an easy victory and you can roll them over.
We're going to get to that in a minute.
And that's like, managers are better lower down, players are better narrowed down, and I think the little kind of percentages that we're losing out on and the little things that we're getting wrong, it's going to cost us. And obviously, not to be really negative, but we've got to be really
we've got safe space to share.
Yeah, we've got to be really careful though in terms of like our league performance, because it's looking like every single game is going to be a bit of hard work, even the Forest one. Do you know what I mean?
That was hard work. It was 2-0 down after 5 minutes.
So basically we're saying all 5
and then we're
games.
hanging on against 10 men. Like, I couldn't believe that. When that ball went 11 minutes, whatever was on it, right? And I seen people after the game, like, who hate United going, and the referee added on 11 minutes. I was like, bro, we didn't want those 11 minutes. We weren't dominating that game, even though they'd had a man sent off. We were all over the gaff. So you're right.
What do you think's your biggest, like, when you're watching us now, like, what do you think is, I know we've gone on and on in the last few weeks. I think off the field, United have been an absolute calamity anyway, from the top. Ownership issues, dramas, etc., like general recruitment, and then you've got obviously a lot of the external issues with like Greenwood, Anthony, Sancho, and then it's obviously leaked onto the pitch of the performance has been really subpar as well. Like, is there anything you point to when you've watched us in the first 5 games and you thought just like that's your major bugbear?
A big bugbear for me is just switching off. I think there's too many players that just switch off for that split second. You get punished. You point out, even against the likes of Nottingham Forest, even against the likes of disrespect Wolves, if you switch off for that split second, it's too late. It's like, oh, that's my man. Oh, do you know what I mean? Like, I should have picked him up and I didn't, or whatever. Or you've divered when you should have maybe gone to press and you haven't, or whatever. There's just been a little bit of switching off I've seen in every single game. Yeah, now it happens. It happens in football. You know better than anyone. It could happen in a game all the time.
Because it's concentration as well. I know. Because obviously we've gone on. It's not so much an excuse, it's factual as well.
We'll get to comments in a minute as well, by the way.
Like, our injury list is shocking, right? Look at the amount of players.
Go on, in fact, go on, Ronnie, right? I'll get to comments in a minute. Just run through the injury list and we'll go through it properly in a minute. You run through it and then we'll get to comments and we'll go back to it.
So, like, injury-wise, this is the unavailable list that we've got. We've got wan-bissaka.
He starts.
Kobe Mainoo.
He's getting minutes this season.
Got Diallo. Probably would have featured.
Tommy Eaton. Let's not be silly.
Amrabat's probably going to be...
We bought
Jadon Sancho.
Jadon Sancho.
Anthony.
Yeah, Jadon Sancho and Anthony are in and around the first team when they're not suspended or... Well, not suspended. One of them is kind of suspended and he's training with the first team. The other one's on a leave of absence, so none of them are available.
Then Malacia.
He features.
Then you got 3 definite starters: Mason Mount, Luke Shaw, and Varane. All right. So we've got an injury list, and that's obviously going to allow us to falter as well. I mean, I don't know what you could probably attribute that to. Is it the lack of rest, the fact that we played so many games last season, catching up? But that is probably a little bit of validity in that excuse. But then when I'm looking at the Brighton game, for example, like, injuries don't just happen for one club. Do you know what I mean? They do. I know they can affect you, but Brighton went into their game and they had a few injuries themselves.
Wasn't Evan Ferguson missing?
Obviously, they didn't start Evan Ferguson because of his injury. They didn't start Ansu Fati. They didn't have Solly March, who's had an amazing start to the season. They completely rested Estupiñán, who's been probably one of the best left-backs this season as well. Like, to me, they didn't have Adam Webster. They had quite a few players that weren't available to them as well. They've got Enciso that's injured. And in my opinion, I think if things at a football club systematically or tactically are set up in a way, I know personnel does matter, that you should still be able to fork out decent performances, and that's what Brighton were able to do. I think Brighton showed us a level that's it should be the other way around. Because Brighton look to me like they're so like assured tactically. Every player knows their individual job, where to be, what spaces to fill, what zones to go into, and then United just look like it's a bit of. Can I
play devil's advocate for a second? Yeah. Can I just say, because I'm with you, right? I am with you on everything you've said. Let me just allow myself to put a bit of a flip side on it. Yeah, I mean, I know. I was just looking at their spine there. It's like Jason Steele, Lallana. All right, you got Duncan, the lad Van Heck, but like Lallana and Welbeck tearing your midfield and your defence apart isn't the one. Even though I do love Danny. Is there sort of like some mitigating circumstances here for these games for some of them, right? Not all of it. Like I'll explain what I'm on about, and then we'll get to the comments. So Wolves was terrible. You're right. We had a mad pre-season. Everyone has agreed we played far too many games in pre-season. Everyone I've heard talk about pre-season has gone, why did Manchester United play all them games? It made no sense. Like we were playing like games in Edinburgh, games in America, games in Dublin, games in Old Trafford, obviously, games in Scandinavia. Like game after game after game after game. So, I know some of the games he played the reserves because there was literally a game the next day, but it was hectic. Come back a little bit leggy, probably not quite there yet. Still a bit rusty. We get over the line against Wolves. All right, fair enough. The Spurs game, got to take your chances. We had chances. We didn't take them. The Rashford header and the Bruno header are sitters. Yeah. Just because people forget when it's on your head. Like, they treat it like it's not a good chance or it's not as bad missing with your feet. It's a sitter, that. 2 sitters. Plus, there was the penalty shout, which should have been a penalty. I'm playing devil's advocate before people start trolling me, right? So you got that one. Forest started slowly, but we get the win. We won. Do you know what I mean? Like, yes, terrible start. We rallied, showed a bit of fighting spirit, got back in the game, and we won the game. Happy days, yeah? Arsenal, fine margins, bro. That Garnacho goal, it is millimetres. And if we go 2-1 up, it's a different... And it could have gone either way. Listen, it didn't. I'm just saying it's fine margins on that one, yeah? So then you go into the Brighton game, and for me in the Brighton game, it's the one where I go, I'm struggling for an excuse. You might
Even though we started
you might say the Marcus, the Højlund goal could have been allowed on another day or whatever. I think tactically, I very rarely say this about Eric Ten Hag, but you got it wrong. But my point I'm saying is, there's not an argument that it's not quite as bad in some of these games as we've made out. Maybe there's just a little bit of misfortune, a little bit.
There has been. I think luck hasn't been on our side, because you could look at the Wolves game and singly and just be like, okay, maybe we looked out in winning a game that we shouldn't have. But I think there are moments in games where things haven't gone our way, which is true. But I think from a general 90-minute performance perspective, you'd have liked United to be a little bit more assured than to kind of having to pick out moments, even though I know moments are important at this level. To me, just from a visual standpoint, in all 5 league games though that we started this season, outside of the moments and the little periods of 20 minutes, etc., I think all 5 games have been really flawed performances though, in a certain way.
I hear you.
So that's kind of the problem, which is what is worrying. Obviously, I was going to say to you, do you think, as much, I'm still a believer in Ten Hag. I still feel like 100%
good,
but I think it is fair to kind of criticise some of the stuff that he has been getting wrong. I know he's having to tinker things a lot because of injuries and like tactical issues, and I think his whole kind of rebuild in terms of the players that he wants in certain areas hasn't been perfect, I guess. But I still think there has come a point now where there's a few things that I have seen from Ten Hag tactically that he can obviously turn around that have been concerning. Obviously, he started at Diamond in the week, and obviously we didn't have but he's obviously done it because we didn't have a right winger. So he's gone, I'm going to narrow it off, and then I'll play Rashford and Højlund as split strikers. But to me, I think what he has done, I think he's put a lot of square pegs in round holes, especially when it comes to some of the tactical stuff, because he's went and he's played Eriksen as he played as a right side 8 at the Diamond or whatever. That in a narrow formation.
He's on the left, Eriksen.
Oh no, maybe he was on the right on the left.
I think he was on the left. I thought he was on the left. I thought McTominay was on the right because he was up against Lamptey. He was on their left back position, wasn't he? And he was up against McTominay, and then you had Eriksen on our left.
Yeah, so he played on the left 8, right? When you play as one of the left-sided kind of midfielders in a narrow diamond, it is very taxing physically in terms of you've got to be basically almost playing as a midfielder, but you also got to get out wide to defend like full-backs and wide. We've seen that one of Eriksen's major issues since he's come is he hasn't got the physicality, the athleticism and the energy to do that. So I thought it was kind of bizarre playing him in that role where he'd have to kind of keep always like funnel out from the middle to the wide area and do so much running. And I think that's the reason why even McTominay on the other side in the second half, their legs were gone. Yeah. Because it was too much running for them to do. And
I agree.
And then you've obviously got Casemiro. He plays Casemiro as a little bit of a deep lying playmaker. He's much more of a destroyer type. I think on the ball he's been quite poor this season as well, but I think that's never been his play style. He played in a Real Madrid team for 10 years where he had the likes of Kroos and Modric doing the ball playing for him. He still can play football, but that's not what his best abilities are.
Yeah, I don't think he needs to do that.
I feel like you need to. I think we need to play to play his strengths anymore. It's the same way with Luke Shaw. Like Luke Shaw is an overlapping, marauding fullback, right? Yeah. But then he's being played as an inverted fullback when we're playing. So I feel like he's asking players to do stuff that aren't always to their strengths at times, and I think that's what's. I know it's sometimes it has to do with his system and he's trying to fit in, but I don't feel like that will work. I think players need to be played to their strengths a little bit more.
I couldn't agree more. Let me go through some of the chats. Sorry, we wanted to get into it. Ross Murphy in there says, like the video, hit that like. Let's get to 400 likes by the end of this podcast. Neil Crode says, we buckle far too easily when conceding goals. I agree. I know the Forest game aside, we do, our heads drop. Even the Forest game, we conceded one and conceded another one straight afterwards. So it wasn't great. I think the one good thing about that Forest game was the goals came very, very early. So we had like 95 minutes because it went on for 100 odd minutes to get it right. Joe C has been a member of the Academy for 33 months. Don't forget as well to check out the membership section. Extra content on there, fantasy football stuff, vlogging stuff, behind the scenes stuff, and a discount on merch as well. It says, morning boys, mentality. I mean, it's afternoon, but you might be in a different part of the world. Of some players is so poor. Heads drop as soon as they concede and effort goes way down. Lots of work still to be done. Sam Z says, have a feeling this season will implode like 21-22. Jalapeno 2 says, forward players, especially Rashford, must pass guys. We miss out on 2 to 3 chances per game. It makes a massive difference. Ten Hag should be given time. RD says, just in the normal chat, says that McTominay was just letting Lamptey go. Couldn't believe it. Malink says, I understand your standpoint, Motty, but we've been having to deal with this for years now. Last season, we usually have a ropey start to a season. It's not a one-off. Needs to be really assessed. I agree. I was playing a little bit of devil's advocate. Maro Accardi says, Ten Hag is a good coach. I agree with that. And RD says, we need that Liverpool turning point. ASAP, last season the Liverpool game was a turning point, wasn't it? Yeah. We need one of them. Rishab Kumar says, how good those Ole Gunnar Solskjaer comebacks in 2020, 2021 looking now. Andrew Miller says, only 1 point less than we got from the corresponding fixtures last season in spite of all the personnel issues. I understand that. I get it, bro. But my issue with that is the Brighton defeat last season was nowhere near acceptable and what shouldn't be happening. So to have it again this season feels a little bit like what is going on. And also, the big issue has been our away form. And to go to Spurs was the only place where we actually got a point against the top 8 last season and lose. And to lose at Arsenal again, it is a little bit deflating. I understand your point of trying to be like, you know what, it's not quite the end of the world. But it isn't good enough. And despite me trying to put a bit of a positive spin on, play a bit of devil's advocate, there are issues afoot. Before we get into all that, though,
need a little run.
We do need a little run. But let me tell you, right, this is all out of your street, this, because fresh ball fall is upon us. You see, I say autumn, but you're quite Americanized, aren't you?
It's the fall, isn't it?
You say fall?
No, I don't.
Right, okay. Because I always think you like your American sports, you're into your American culture. I thought you might say fresh ball fall, but you don't. You say fresh ball autumn, like I do, or looking after your autumn chestnuts. So you need to be in a festive spirit, and thankfully, you can light a candle and get some pumpkin spice and make sure your balls look nice with the sponsor of today's show, Manscaped. Nature may clear the leaves off their trees, but you'll need Manscaped help to get you ready for that sweater weather. There you go. How poetic. Go and check. Hang on a minute. There's more. Get your pants puppies prepared for cuffing season with a trim as refreshing as a fall breeze by going to manscaped.com and using the code DEVILS20. I mean, I just came up with that. Actually. I'm not even reading it. Yeah. Listen, I know what you're thinking. You're like, 20% off and free shipping. That's great, Jay. But what am I getting for it? Well, let me tell you, son. You're getting the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer with the advanced skin-safe technology. You're getting the Manscaped boxers. You're getting the Shed travel bag to put all your goodies in. You're getting the you're getting the crop preserver, the crop toner as well, ball deodorant and crop reviver. You're also getting, when you get that Lawnmower 4.0, and you've got the 7,000 RPMs, you've got the multifunctional on-off switch, because I hate when you turn something on and you can't turn it off again. It's multifunctional, yeah? All that goes in your Shed travel bag, because listen, if you want to look good this autumn, right, you might have had a little bit of a relaxing time in the summer, everything's just hanging loose, everything's hanging out, and you're like, you know what, now we're getting into the business bit, innit? The season started, it's business time, I need to sort out my business. Well, Manscaped have got you covered. Go and check out the link in the description. Use the code DEVILS20. You're getting a Lawnmower 4.0, you're getting a crop preserver, you're getting a crop toner, you're getting the Shed travel bag, you're getting the boxer briefs, yeah, you're getting all that skin-safe technology, anti-chafing technology, all the technology you could possibly wish for, plus free shipping, plus 20% off. Your balls will thank you this fall, or even, as we say in Eccles, this autumn. Big thank you to Manscaped for sponsoring this podcast. Ronnie, we've got all these injuries, right? I'm gonna flip my devil's advocate, yeah, where I was making excuses.
Right. Yeah, because I was gonna ask you about, because I know that I didn't fully hear what you said earlier about it, though. I didn't know some white stuff on my face, but anyway,
I made excuses. Yeah, for us. Yeah.
Because I know you're a big, not to put you on the spot. You're a huge Rashford fan. Yeah. And you saw a lot of the criticism that he got.
I stuck up for him today, right?
From the weekend, but you already stuck up for him.
I got a little stick, but let me put my point of view of, right? I'm not saying Marcus Rashford wasn't at fault in that game against Brighton.
For that clip, yeah.
He should have done better. I'm not, Marcus Rashford's not my son. Like, I'm not going to just blindly defend him no matter what he does. I'll criticise the kid when he deserves criticism. I thought the first 55 minutes, I thought he did very well. I thought he was getting a beating of the full-back. Very unlucky that the Højlund goal wasn't a goal. He was pulling out some skills. He was doing well. He was getting the crowd off the seats. Everything was going really well. Second half, there was the chance where maybe he should have squared it. Well, he should have squared it. It's not the end of the world, though. But then he tailed off. He seemed to sort of fall off a cliff in terms of his everything, from his energy, his directness, everything just went out the window. Nothing was working for him. And I get that. But one of the lads in the comments this morning was saying, sell Marcus Rashford. No. So my defence, and the bit we clipped up, was there's several reasons why I don't agree with that. I think Marcus Rashford has been one of our most productive players over the last 5 years. He had one season where it didn't happen for him, but the other 4 seasons, I think it has, with in all competitions, 20 plus goals, 30 goals last season, lots of assists. Secondly, and this is the big point I was getting at, which we didn't put on the clip. If you think this club, or as a club, we will sell Marcus Rashford and bring someone in who's automatically better, I've got some magic beans to sell you. Look at the issues we've got on the right-hand side. We have spent 175 million on wingers. 212 million quid, I think, we've spent on wingers, right? And we are still putting midfielders on the right-hand side of attack. Now, I admit, 2 of our wingers aren't available for things we can't have predicted. But even when they were available, they weren't setting the world alight. Let's not kid ourselves and pretend that Anthony was absolutely smashing it week in, week out. The kid went 5 months last season without a goal or assist in the Premier League. Yeah. Jadon Sancho has flattered to deceive since he arrived. And the likes of Diallo and Palestri are youngsters. So I'm not having to dig it down. I'm just pointing out the fact we spent money on them. The young, the other ones we spent money on, even when they are available, haven't been great. So there's nothing that makes me feel that if we went and got 100 million for Marcus Rashford, we'd go and spend that 100 million on a better left winger. I just don't think we would. I think history shows that we have struggled to bring in good attackers. I think what we need is to keep Marcus, sort out the right-hand side, and bring in a backup for Rasmus Højlund. That's what I think. And that was my point I was making. Yeah. But you're right to point out Marcus, because he didn't have a great game.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you're saying, to be honest. But I agree. But I had a little bit of a flip argument on it with the whole, like, some of the work rate stuff that we saw from Rashford on the weekend. Obviously, I don't feel like it was very acceptable. But from a standpoint of what you're saying is, Rashford, in terms of his output, has been relatively undeniable, especially like a majority of last season. I know I saw a stat saying apparently he's only had 4 in his last 20. I think with the way that our teams operate as well, usually if Rashford doesn't score or gets a goal or assist, we don't really have anyone else really on the team that does, apart from Bruno. But from the same point, I'm not out here saying that Rashford's perfect. I think obviously his decision making can be better at times. Obviously his work rate off the ball can be better. I think he can link with the forward players a little bit better and be a little bit more creative in that aspect. But from at the same time, players like Rashford are a luxury in a sense of no matter how he's playing. I know you can't always hinge a lot on a player being like that because he is a luxury player, has its pros and cons. But he's like one of those players where at any moment, any game, he can do he can basically score. And those players are very few and far between. And that's why with the way that United are right now, he's important. But I do think for United to elevate, he definitely has to work on some of those things.
And that's a great point, that. No, you're right, because people were saying, bring someone in who can do these things. Why not get Erik ten Hag to coach Marcus and say, look, I need you to do this now?
I think that's what a lot of people are saying, because obviously with the way that football is now, where it has become very systematic and you do need to press and you need to work hard and everyone needs to be built into one. I think the way we are as a team now is, as much as the output is that Rashford is produced, he has to work harder, because United can't afford to even have one passenger with the way that teams are. So I think if Rashford and his work rate and he's not pressing, it significantly hurts the team that way, because United are not strong enough generally throughout the team to kind of accommodate a player not working hard or not pressing, especially out of possession.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people's gripe with Rashford is, because of especially off the ball, and obviously on the ball I feel like he could be a little bit more creative, etc., which I agree with.
Yeah.
Because I'm like in between, because I think, don't know if it's a bit of loyalty like Rashford, he's grown, he's given us a lot of good moments, but at the same time, Rashford's work rate has to improve, and some of his game in terms of decisions, like looking to assist when he should score, and some of them things do need to they need improving if United are going to go to the next level.
I agree, right? Yeah. I agree completely. So, and like I said, I'm not just going to blindly defend Marcus Rashford. I just honestly feel, right, someone said it in the chat here, right, and I'm going to point this out. Yeah. He says, I hope I can find it. Someone said, right, Mauro Icardi said, hadn't he 150 million euros? I don't think he was that much, to be honest with you. Sancho, 100 million euros. Zaha, free. Icardi, 10 million. Ziyech, free. The big issue you get, I think you could sell Marcus, right? And there's this idea, you bring in someone else, or you bring in... And you don't know what he's own as well. They might sell Marcus for 100 million and go to Erik ten Hag, right, you can have 50 of that to bring in his replacement. We're going to keep 50. There'd be riots. If you were to sell your top scorer and keep some of the dough for the owners and give some to the manager to buy and bring in a replacement who may not even do what you want him to do, I think everyone would go berserk, and rightly so. Because I think there's a case to be made that Marcus Rashford can still improve. We've seen it where he's had peaks and troughs. Under Ralph Rangnick, he was down here. Yeah. I said when Marcus Rashford had that season with Rangnick, I said he doesn't need to have just a good next season. He needs to have a good start to the season. Because if Erik ten Hag comes in and he plays the way he's been playing for Ralph Rangnick, he ain't going to stick with him because he doesn't owe him anything. Excuse me. Thankfully, Marcus hit the ground running. So we can see him improve, and he needs to do that now in certain aspects of his game. And get used as well to having that striker alongside him. Yeah. If he's going to play with a striker in that box who's going to be asking for the ball, then when he goes down that left with his left and it's on his left, he needs to whip it in.
But that's not like his natural game. Because he
needs to learn that.
Because in me, I think United's ceiling is capped if Rashford is your maximal output player.
The worry I've got, and you just said 4 in 20, I think, for his goals.
Yeah.
I said this last season. I don't feel that Marcus, even when he was getting those goals, is someone you can hang your hat on to always get you goals. I don't think he's that guy.
I think that's the point. I think United's ceiling is capped if Rashford's your most relied upon output player.
You need someone who's you need a striker down that middle who can get you 20 goals.
Because as I think, you know, like how the past few years United have been, especially from Ollie, like our best type of play and our best form, that coming so close. By the way, we've been like more of a transitional threat where everything's on the counter, and that's where a lot of our best players come.
Yeah.
A lot of the best teams in the world now, obviously, and the teams that are performing the best in the Premier League right now in terms of Arsenal, City, it's become a lot more about like control and field tilt and those technical terms where you're more controlling the ball a lot more, and that's Ten Hag's like natural philosophy, but we've just never had the personnel to do it. And I think Rashford is more solely a player that's better when the play's fast and it's transitional and it's counter, he's got more space. He's not really the best when it comes to like keeping the possession and it being, because what he does is when he gets the ball in the final third, I feel like he only thinks one thing.
Yeah.
Running, being direct, looking for goal. he's almost like the antithesis of what a Pep winger would be, but doesn't necessarily mean like it's a negative. So I think there are, for all the good that he does and the ability that he does have, there are question marks in terms of where United can go if Rashford is a player that you mostly rely on for all your output, because of the fact that he seems off the ball, he doesn't fit really what Ten Hag would want to do in terms of pressing, and we haven't got the players to accommodate that, him as being a passenger, and also on the ball, he's not someone that's basically like a control of possession. I think that's why, I think I might have a theory. I think that's why, for all the performances that Anthony has done in terms of not producing goals and assists, not playing very well, I think one of the main reasons Ten Hag might play Anthony so much on the other side as a right wing, no matter what he does, is because of Rashford on the left side. He's almost like the opposite type of winger, but he provides balance, because Anthony's the type of winger that I'm talking about, where even though he's not doing it, he not only needs to do more, but he's very, very good in possession in terms of holding it. He's technically sound. He helps you almost control games a little bit, whereas Rashford's not. So I don't know. I think maybe he thinks if he's got the opposite.
I hear you. I do.
Yeah.
And I love Marcus, and I think in terms of talent, his ceiling is very, very high. We just need a little bit of consistency and a little bit of, I don't know, just a little bit of a better understanding of what you need to do in certain games and what you need to do in certain periods of the game and what you don't need to be doing. And I don't think it helps as well, because
this is a man that was compared to Mbappe like a few seasons
ago. And that
ago.
doesn't do him any favours, to be honest.
Do you know what I mean?
But it's like on Saturday, he looked knackered, whether it was an injury or he'd run out of steam. He was holding his legs, so he had something going on, but he didn't come off. The manager stayed with him, kept with him, and that was a bit baffling, because you think Garnacho's there, because Garnacho hadn't come on at this point. Just swap him for Rashford.
That could be a problem as well, though.
Like, don't just leave him on, because he looked knackered.
I think that could be a problem as well. I think
take him off.
I think that's a problem. I think the reliance on Rashford could be a problem, where I know what it's like when you play football and you feel like no matter what you do and how you perform, you're starting week in, week out. And I think that's what. I think maybe we need a winger that can almost challenge him.
Yeah.
So that, because
is that not Garnacho? Do you feel?
Nah, because in my opinion, you can only do that type of work rate that you saw from Rashford on the weekend in terms of not off the ball work, when you know that no matter what you do, you're not asked because you're starting the next game.
Right. Yeah.
And that's not good. Do you know what I mean?
I think there is an element. I think that what Ten Hag's done a little bit with Rashford, he's done a little bit what Ollie did. Ollie sort of stuck with Rashford and he kept him on all the time, because Rashford would pop up with a late goal. And even if he was having a stinker, I think it was Wolves, I remember the Wolves game once, he was having a terrible game and he scored the winner in the 93rd minute or whatever it was. And I think he's always got that in his locker. And I wonder if it's Ten Hag's thinking, like, he's a guy that can get me a goal. Like, I'm reluctant to take him off. Yeah. And sometimes you have to make those bold decisions, especially if you can see he's not 100% or whatever is going on. I wanted to ask you something else, right? Because you've got a little bit of experience of this. I know it's at different levels, and I'm not mocking you. I'm being serious.
Nah, of course.
Like, there's a lot of turmoil going on. You've been at Oldham when you was a kid, and there was all sorts going on off the pitch, right? Yeah. Like, it was chaos, yeah? You've got an ownership merry-go-round, you've got a manager coming in, and apparently the chairman's trying to pick the team when you was at Oldham, and you've just come into this, and like, you're in the dressing room and hearing all this. There's a similar thing going on at United in terms of the ownership. You've got players who are on leave of absence. You've got another player who's gone out to Getafe because of the reasons we all know. You've got another player who's training on his own because he's had a row with the manager. How does that affect the dressing room, do you feel?
1,000%.
Is that something where the players are going?
100%. I know you'd be like, the professionals, they should do what they're doing, but all this off-field stuff and this constant drama, whether it's from owners, players, suspensions, etc., can never ever be good, because they're still like people.
Yeah.
They see the noise, they hear the noise, no matter as much they deny it. And I think a dressing room being settled together, there being like a good ethos and aura and culture about it, adds that extra 5% in games that can help you win trophies or win games when you shouldn't win them, or performing better.
Yeah.
And without doubt, the stuff that's going on behind the scenes at United, and it's been for a long time, with it being like the lack of knowing what's going on, it just being everything being up in the air all the time, also with a lot of the negativity, that definitely will affect the dressing room, and that can leak out into performances as well. Obviously, it won't be a major factor, but it definitely is one, because I think players can play to their best of ability, and teams can almost work in unison a little bit more if everything's a little bit more settled, everyone's together, everyone's bought in. And I don't think that's the case at United, and I don't think that can ever fully ever be the case while the Glazers are still here.
You saw an element of that, didn't you, against Brighton?
Yeah.
With the Brighton team playing for each other, you know, doing the roles they're given, but also having that unit. Do you know what I mean? Even in the little, the little interactions and stuff when you're watching players and the way they're talking to each other and congratulating each other when they've made a tackle or little things you can see. This is the team. And United have had a little bit of that under Eric Ten Hag, but it does seem to be not going out the window, but it doesn't seem to be great at the minute in that respect.
Yeah,
Do you remember when we were praising Lisandro Martinez this time last season, where he was running around at the end of games and grabbing all the people and throwing them about, and when Delon made a tackle, he'd run over to him.
Gone.
Do you know what I mean? There'd be that sort of camaraderie, and you think we're in this together. And now it doesn't feel that's quite happening.
It's always easier to do them things when you're winning, knowing it.
That's a good point.
I think the mentality,
That's a very good point.
That's part of the mentality issue at United as well. I think character-wise, mentality-wise, it needs to be better, because I think what's concerned us as fans more than anything else is there's been so many games where we've lost or we've drawn, especially whether it be this season, some parts at the end of last season, where you can actually notably watch that game with 20 minutes to go while we're losing, and you're looking at the team and the players and you think they've given up.
Yeah.
And I think as a footballer, as a person in anything, in any sport, one of the worst things you can do is give up. Do you know what I mean? And I think
that is unforgivable.
It's unforgivable.
I don't mind not having the quality.
And fans can notice that. Yeah. And I think there's been a couple of games I've seen that, and one thing that fans don't want to do is they don't want to watch games and feel like they care more than the players.
Yeah.
Because they've got the ability to do something about it and we can't.
No,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, No,
so once that happens,
I agree.
You're fucked.
I agree. I'm going to get into some of the chats. Forgive me for waiting a little for these chats, but I wanted to get Ronnie's take on that. Akshay says, I'm a ML engineer and can't believe that a giant like United isn't using AI in their medical department to predict every week who are vulnerable for an injury with MRIs for next match and rest them. I don't know if that's how feasible that is, but you obviously seem to know what you're on about. Neil Crow says, did the club not look into Eric's game management? I mean, I presume, I don't know. I presume that's one of the reasons we got him, I presume. I don't think that we looked at him, or we didn't look at it.
Nah, what I will say, Jay, is he's a good manager, he's elite, and he showed a lot of really, really good tactics. He got Ajax to a level that they weren't previously. Yeah, and he showed a lot of good stuff managerially, but I feel like there was some Ajax fans did say that his in-game management was probably one of his weaker areas.
Came unstuck a little bit at times, didn't he? Like, we've seen it in a couple of cup competitions where you go, hang on a minute, what's going on here?
Are you worried about the fact that I think United seem to...
Ajax, I mean, well, you've seen it at United as well.
What I've noticed under Ten Hag, and that's throughout his tenure, is I think we are generally really, really poor in the second halves of games. And I look at that as thinking, people just point out to energy, etc. But I don't know. I feel like sometimes even the first 10 minutes after half time, and when that happens to me as someone that played, I feel like is that a managerial issue?
You cannot get a better example of that than Anfield.
It feels like we come out sleeping.
When Gary Neville said we were the better team in the first half, people ridiculed him, but we were.
Bruno had a good sense.
Like we had the better chances. They had one chance and they scored. It was relatively even at the worst. To lose 6-0 in the second half, 7-0 overall, was just unreal. And that was a massive drop off. And we've seen it time and time again in these games. You go back to the Emirates last season, the last 15 minutes, we were done. We were gone, and you could argue there's fitness levels. Palace the week before or earlier on that week, the same thing happened. I don't know whether it is fitness, the tactics. Sometimes his substitutions are a little bit confusing, but not often. I don't often go, what is he doing? Often they make sense to me.
That's why you won't see him. I feel like some of the stuff it's like little tweaks that people feel like he might get wrong. But I'm more worried about the first 15 minutes after a half time for United. Quite often we look quite sluggish and like we've not almost like.
Do you remember Leeds at home last season where they scored early in the first half and it was 1-0 I think, and then everyone was like, right, half time we'll come out, second half we'll get into him. Second half we come out, they score, and you're like.
Isn't that an indictment on the manager though? Because I'm more thinking every time that I'm watching a United game now, the second half starts, first 15 minutes, the other team look more up for it, and it's like, is that like, does he galvanise the players in the right way, or?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm guessing. Do you think there might be a bit of him overcomplicating things at half time? Can that have an effect? If you're giving too much instructions, like, because I think all the great managers have said, I think Brian Clough and Fergie and people like said that sometimes you just got to keep, I think, simple, like 1 or 2 instructions to players. Don't overload them. You know, in that half time, it's like, you need to do this, you need to do that. I don't know, maybe he's giving out too much. Maybe players are just coming out and they're like, I don't know.
So you've not seen...
I'm trying to find a reason for it.
So, like, because I know you definitely would have. You would have seen some subs that he's done and thought, oh, you've not quite got that. Or
Because I did on Saturday was the worst for me in terms of his changes that I didn't get.
Because one of mine was, I think even against Arsenal, right? And this comes to like some people criticising in-game management in terms of certain little tactical tweaks that he does. Or maybe sometimes he might have a bit of the pep about him where when he starts out with a certain set of tactics for a game, he doesn't want to tweak it because he's a bit stubborn. You know, some managers can be.
Forget that.
Some managers can be like that. But
Pep in the Champions League went through that for 5 years, didn't he? And then unfortunately he stopped it.
He goes through games now without even making a sub sometimes.
But it's like a point in it to prove, and I don't know what point you're proving to whom. I don't get it.
It's like against Arsenal, I feel like there were certain periods, especially in the second half, where we had a decent amount of possession, or we weren't having a lot of pass in the final third. I think the game was still like there to be won by either side. Obviously, you talk about the Garnacho chance that got her taken aback, and I think he made a substitution. I can't remember what substitution he made.
Is this in the Arsenal game?
In the Arsenal game, there was a substitution he made where at a period where we had a bit more control, where it almost made us more transitional then. And then we kind of relinquished any control that we had. And I think Arsenal almost took over the game after that. And then it became a little bit of a Stonewall job where we're trying to defend. And then we couldn't obviously see the game out. And it's like little tactical tweaks like that. Can be minor, not very obvious. But then they end up resulting in you losing the game. But obviously I think that can be a bit pedantic because it's like a little thing. But there are little...
The one at the weekend, as I say as well, because I'm going to get into comments and chat in a minute before we do our Wally of the week. The one at the weekend I did get, funnily enough, and a lot of people didn't get it, including a lot of my mates, was the Hoyland for Martial one. That, for me, felt like...
He said he weren't ready for 90, apparently.
Yeah, and I got that. When it happened, I thought, that feels like it's pre-planned, like, you've got an hour, and then I'm going to swap you. But, like, even little ones like Reguilon, where I stand, or where I was... Well, I stand, like, right near the tunnel in the CRA. Reguilon's down my bit attacking, and he was getting joy. All of a sudden, the crowd is going, he's keeping it in, he's going past his man, he's getting a cross in, you're like, yeah. And then a minute later, he's getting subbed, and you're like, why have you done that? Do you know what I mean? Like, little things like that.
When he's getting in a bit, he's almost like a basket, he's on fire, he's getting hot.
He's growing into the game, and he's getting a beating of the right back, and then you go in, right, you're off. And then somebody who was having a stinker kept staying on, eventually came off. It was a bit weird. That was the real worrying thing for me about Saturday. It's the first one where I've gone, some of those subs made zero sense to me.
Was it that I think during his whole he had 17 passes in the game?
17?
In him out.
That's not good, is it?
But that's
by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, that you might get away with that if you're a striker and you're Erling Haaland or someone who scores 4 goals during your game. But 17 passes from midfield, poor. Tina Telefson Toka says the syndrome have amongst these players need to be dealt with, and the problem is that it comes from the top because the players know when we give up, the manager will get sacked. Well, they need to, you know what, if that is the case, if they're down in tools with this manager, like Roy Keane says, they'll throw him on the bus, then they all want sacking. Akash Solomon says, I think the consistent switching off at key points for the poor goals is the first thing that needs addressing. Unforgivable, that really. That's the point I was making. Abhinav Verma, who's been a member of the academy for 29 months, says every manager has had this problem with our players who don't come out properly in the second half. Think it goes beyond managers. Just other people in the chat as well. Says Sin Game says he's losing the dressing room. I feel half of them have already clocked out. They need to sort that out again. Damien Jar says Eric Ten Hag don't trust our young players. We're going to cover that today, but we haven't got time. We'll talk about that another time because there's some good young players coming through who are in and around the first team that we need to talk about, and hopefully we'll get some more minutes. And I want to see Palestra being given a chance now with Anthony out of the picture. I was a bit disappointed he only got 8 minutes on Saturday. Ronnie, give us your Wally of the week, please, my friend.
My Wally of the week. There's usually quite a few candidates for this. I'll say Wally of the week is Jamie Carragher's anti-Onana article.
Do you know what? This is a really good point, because if anyone didn't read this, Jamie Carragher did an article where he said that Andre Onana, when he berated Harry Maguire on pre-season, was pandering to the crowd. It wasn't because he felt like he needed to do it. It was just like, oh, I'm going to show off. And then Barney Roney, I think, from the Times or whatever it is, did an article, and loads of people tweeted Jamie Carragher with clips of Andre Onana shouting at his defenders throughout his career.
Yeah.
When he was at Inter, going back further, probably at Ajax, but especially when he was at Inter, look, he's not performing. This is what he does. And then Jamie Carragher's come back and said, oh, well, he shouldn't have been doing that to the club captain. Maguire isn't the club captain, and he wasn't when he did it to him. And just the usual nonsense. And I feel like with Jamie Carragher, producer Alexi pointed out, last season it was Martinez straight away, was on him. Too small, not good enough. After 2 games as well, rubbish. This time it's Onana after half an hour. Half an hour of playing for Manchester United. Shouting at people, shouldn't do that, it's rubbish. It's just bitter scouse drivel. I can't be bothered with it. I get why you've made him Wally of the week though. 100%. I'm trying to think who's going to be my Wally of the week. I don't know. There's. Do you know what it is, right? With me, with the Wally of the week, I'm going to choose this one. And Daniel Farr's already beat me to it, and it's not even the decision, right? It's not because of the decision. It's the amount of time it takes for the decision, and it's what it's doing to football. It's VAR. Because I am, right, me and you sat on this table a few weeks ago, or a week ago, and United scored against Arsenal, and I could tell you didn't quite, when Garnacho scored against Arsenal, you didn't quite give it your all. You held back a little bit, because I know you.
Wait. Are you sure?
No, I think
like that got knocked over.
Was that goal?
Yeah, it was.
Well, I'll tell you what it was then. Straight away afterwards, you noticed that there was a thing there. You were like,
it was
straight away afterwards.
I did the initial elation.
Yeah,
I was buzzing. We're beating Arsenal, who I hate more than everything.
I knew there was something in mind.
And then I kind of went. Oh,
you didn't do what we normally do after we scored, where you carry it on. And at the game at the weekend, when Højlund scored, there was an element of everyone going mad, because I was down the other end of the pitch. I thought it was a goal, and then you have that 2.5 minutes of waiting or whatever it was, and then it's just, it's not a goal, and it's getting to the point where you can't really celebrate anymore. And I just feel like VAR is ruining that. It doesn't matter whether you're at the game or whether you're at home or whether you're at work watching it on your phone or whatever. It's just ruining the celebrations, and it's not even the fact that we're getting these decisions against us. It's just VAR on a whole is wrecking football.
Yep.
It is spoiling our enjoyment of the game. If the linesman flag goes up and it's done, right? That is it, yeah? If the referee blows his whistle, it's done, right? Fine, whatever. But when you have these goals and then you 10 minutes later or 5 minutes later, you find out it's not a goal, it's just getting to the point where you're not going to want to celebrate. You're just not. You're going to think, oh, hang on a minute, let's wait and see. Joe did it a few times on watch-alongs last season, where it was a legit goal and he didn't celebrate because he thought it wasn't. And it's like, it's spoiling it for you, and football's hard enough without spoiling it for ourselves. So yeah, that'd be my one, VAR. And like I say, it's not just because we're not getting the decisions, it's also because it's just spoiling it. Abhinav Verma says Japan was given a goal for same thing in the World Cup. There you go, you see. I think that's the thing over the line, yeah. It's just debate. It's adding a debate we don't need as well, to be honest with you. Listen, thanks to everyone who got involved in the comments and the chat. A really good discussion. I know it's not exactly a happy time to be a Manchester United fan, but listen, there's worse things happening, isn't there? And also, Bayern Munich on Wednesday. We'll batter them and then everything will be great again. Ronnie, where can people find you?
Can find Ronaldo Brown _98 on the X app.
On the X app, no longer the Bird app, the X app. You know where to find me as well, J Motty. Make sure as well you go and check out Manscaped. There's a link in the chat and a link in the description. Using the code Devils20 to get 20% off and free shipping. Your balls will thank you this fall. That's been Ronaldo Brown. I'm J Motty. This has been the Paddock Podcast. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.